Welcome back to My Child Can't Read, a Heartland Crisis. I'm your host, Jesica Glover, and this is Season 3, From Resistance to Revolution. This season is about the people changing literacy from the ground up. Parents, teachers, advocates, and those of us who once trusted a system we thought we understood, until we learned the truth. Season 3 is about courage. The courage to question what we were taught, to confront what wasn't working, and to step into a movement rewriting the future of millions of children. And we begin here with the teacher's story, because everything that follows depends on understanding one thing. Our teachers were never given the training they needed to teach reading based on how the brain actually learns. Not in Kansas, not in most of the country. Parents weren't told that. Teachers weren't told why their programs were failing kids. And no one told families what that gap would cost. But now the truth is finally coming to light. And once you know better, you fight for better. This season, we're diving into the heart of that fight. Teacher voices, parent advocacy, misdiagnosis, and SPED blind spots. Rural organizing, systemic barriers, the realities and the hope of dyslexia. Because this revolution isn't just about exposing gaps. It's about teachers who are searching for real training, teachers who are trying to bridge theory to practice, teachers who want coaching and support, teachers who are learning the science of reading for the first time, and teachers who still haven't been given the chance, but deserve to be equipped to help every child read. Season 3 is the story of resistance becoming revolution, of parents finally being told the truth and learning how to advocate, of communities rising when the system says no, and of a movement refusing to look away. Season 3 starts right here. Let's begin. Today we have the privilege of welcoming a true giant in the field of literacy, learning differences, and educator preparation, Dr. Joyce S. Pickering. Dr. Pickering is an internationally recognized leader whose life's work has transformed the way we understand and support students with language-based learning differences, including dyslexia. Over her 5 decades in education, she has blended clinical expertise, Montessori philosophy, and evidence-based language therapy to build systems of instruction that support the whole child. She currently serves as the Executive Director Emerita and Ambassador of the Shelton School and Evaluation Center in Dallas, Texas, the largest independent school in the world for students with learning differences. Under her leadership, Shelton has become a national model for what effective, compassionate, science-aligned education truly looks like, not only for the students in their classrooms, but for the thousands of educators trained through Shelton's outreach and training programs. Dr. Pickering is also a speech-language pathologist, a Montessori educator, and a longtime advocate for structured literacy and multisensory teaching. She led the development of the Shelton Model of Education, a model that integrates deep research on learning disorders with practical classroom instruction, and she has trained teachers across the United States and around the globe. Her work has shaped the preparation of public school and private school educators alike, and her voice carries enormous influence in today's conversations about dyslexia intervention, teacher preparation, and literacy reform. Over the years, she has become honored by organizations such as the American Montessori Society, or AMS, International Multisensory Structured Language Education Council, IMSLEC, International Dyslexia Association, also known as IDA, and numerous Montessori institutes for her unparalleled contributions to the field. Generations of educators credit her with shaping their understanding of how children learn, and generations of students have benefited from her tireless work. Some revolutions begin quietly, and some begin with one person who refuses to let knowledge die. Today, we meet that person. Joyce S. Pickering, the elder of the revolution. Joyce's story begins long before the science of reading was a national conversation. In the 1960s, parents came to her asking for help, and she knew she needed to do something. Let's hear Joyce in her own words.
It was a parent that came to me, and then several parents in the summer of a long time ago, 1966. And I was a speech language pathologist in a public school. And I also taught a class of hearing impaired and language impaired students. And these parents said, we have these services, but my child has just been diagnosed with dyslexia. I'm told he's intelligent and he can learn, but he's got to have some specific instruction. Can we have a class for these children? And so I said, I think we should. Let me go to our superintendent. I went to him and he said, yes, we can do that, Joyce. Like we have the class for the language impaired and hearing impaired children, which had 8 children in it. It was a small program. But he said, I've just heard there's the possibility of a grant from Health, Education, and Welfare, Title III, for any new or innovative idea in education. I want you to write a grant for it and see if we can get some funding. So I worked with our business office, wrote the grant. Long story short, I wrote it 3 times because they kept telling me I wasn't asking for enough money. They wanted to do big grants, not small ones. And we got from 1967 to 70, a 3-year grant for $500,000 to identify and instruct children in any public, private, or parochial school in a 10-county area of the state. So I really can only say that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I said, of course we'll do that. And then the blessing was that people who could make this dream a reality fell into my life.
By 1968, her federally funded program was recognized as the best special education program in the United States, and she wasn't even 30 years old. She also saw something the system refused to see.
People would scream at me if I said we needed to work with children earlier, because the thought was you couldn't work with anybody until they'd failed. You couldn't work with anybody until they were at least in the 3rd grade. Well, by the 3rd grade, what I saw was they were discouraged. Their self-concept was dropping like a rock. It was torture for them to go to school, totally embarrassed, and it was ridiculous because the early signs that children are at risk for dyslexia are very clear.
That idea that children deserve help before they fail is still revolutionary in some places today. And while doing this early work, Joyce discovered Montessori, not as a trend, but as a neurological match.
As you know, language therapy is explicit, sequential, multisensory, and in the Montessori classroom, every area, every subject area that's academic or some additional developmental areas are all of those things, explicit, sequential, multisensory. So I just felt this was such a gift. This was another experience in my life where when I needed to know how to work with a population of students, somehow I found it. So that program was really the beginning of me working with and being very dedicated to early intervention. A lot of training in both the language therapy program and in the early intervention program I did through the Southwest and somewhat in the Middle States. And then I went overseas with my husband, Dr. Robert Pickering, who was a superintendent of schools at the American School in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We were there for 10 years. I was the lower school dean. I started the Montessori program there, and we put in the reading program. So all children were trained in this reading program. I have kept up with the research and kept editing somewhat new versions of the program, which is now called Sequential English Education, the C program. So it blends seamlessly with the language therapy and Montessori. The unique feature of this program is because I was a speech-language pathologist, there's a lot of information in the series, which are scripted manuals that comes from speech and language therapy. Since, in my experience, that many, if not most, of the children with reading difficulties have some underlying oral language weaknesses, all the way to oral language disorders. Also being trained as a Montessorian, so it is very comprehensive.
This planted the seed for the system she would later build. For Joyce, this wasn't just teaching. It was justice, it was dignity, it was equity, and she wasn't done. Training teachers and passing the torch. While universities resisted teaching structured literacy, Joyce was already doing it, anywhere teachers would gather. Church basements, borrowed classrooms, community centers. She helped pioneer IMSLEC, or the International Multisensory Structured Language Education Council, the global accrediting body ensuring excellence in multisensory structured language education, and played a major role in ALTA, which certifies dyslexia therapists with rigorous training and supervised practicum. Her expectations were simple and uncompromising.
So the training that we do is just amazing. Some of the people coming have master's degrees in reading, certified reading specialist, but they have kids that they can't reach. So they come, and about the second day of any of these programs, they invariably say, I am furious. I have all these degrees. I went to school. I didn't know any of this about the English language. And what a waste of time and money. So it does give them skills they didn't have. For me, I think schools need interventionists, but what I want to do is train every teacher in the school in a language therapy approach, because it helps all children learn to read, write, and spell better, because they're very sequential and very comprehensive. And many people who do not have a learning difference, are not dyslexic, do not know half of the things that we teach the children with learning differences in these programs, but they can manage without it because they don't have the processing difficulties that the child with the learning difference has.
Her approach didn't just train teachers, it changed them.
Because I was a speech-language pathologist, there's a lot of information in the series, which are scripted manuals, a lot of information that comes from speech and language therapy. And since, in my experience, that many, if not most, of the children with reading difficulties have some underlying oral language weaknesses, all the way to oral language disorders. Also being trained as a Montessorian, which I was trained by June Shelton and then also by Selma Perry in Chicago at her institute, her training institute. I included many of the strategies in Montessori into this program. So it is very comprehensive. And there's two versions of it. There's the beginning level, which is for children 5 to 7. And then there is the intermediate level, which is for students 8 all the way through adults.
Joyce became the bridge between eras, from Dr. Samuel Orton's early work to the Orton Society to today's science of reading movement. She kept the torch burning during decades when almost no one else did. Innovation and advocacy. Joyce's leadership at the Shelton School brought everything together: research, therapy, teacher training, and advocacy, at a scale few thought possible. Shelton became the largest school of its kind in the world, and yet Joyce never let the work get abstract.
What the typical educator does not know, because they didn't get it in college, unless they had someone who had this knowledge and shared it with them, is that there's two critical factors in learning. One is their intellectual ability. The other is their perceptual ability, their processing skills. So we know that children with learning differences, or most of them, have an average IQ or better, and some much better. The highest IQ dyslexic person I worked with has an IQ of 150. So this is in that very top range of intellectual ability. So his perceptual skills, his processing with accuracy for reading, which affects writing and spelling also, is deficient. And one of the things that I think teachers, and I know people in our training courses, when they first come in, the first thing the parent or the teacher thinks if a child isn't doing well in their class or in school is, maybe he's not as smart as I thought he was. So, you take this little bright child who from birth to preschool was smart, had a good many of them great vocabulary, got concepts really quickly. They start to teach him to read, and he's having trouble. And he often has some trouble with any kind of writing. So they're thinking he's just not trying as hard as he should. They're thinking, and they often say to him, "You're smart, you can do it." And he doesn't know why he can't do it. He just knows, I can't do what some of these other people can do. Yeah. And that's when the toll really hits the self-concept. Is higher the IQ, the more pain they're in. Yeah. Because everything's come so easy before. And they've never run into this brick wall before. So if the teacher just understands that people with learning differences are intelligent, but have a processing difficulty that is very specific to this term called dyslexia. In its simplest form, dys means difficulty with, and lexio means words. So it's always been throughout history that if you were smart, you'd learn, and if you didn't learn, you weren't smart. Changing that mindset is critical. It's not that this child won't do what you're asking. He can't or she can't. The way you're teaching him needs another way. And every teacher needs to be taught what those ways are. Because even if she has a class of 30 people, she can at least, or he, if it's a male teacher, at least understand this child may be trying 3 times as hard as others, but can't learn the same way at the same rate of speed.
She dismantled myths one by one, including the idea that dyslexia is a visual problem.
It's actually visual and auditory. Great deal of emphasis on the underlying reason for dyslexia being auditory. And that is a significant part of it. And in the 60s, the emphasis was on the visual processing. Actually, both visual, auditory integration. So I see this squiggle and I know the sound it makes. I've got to integrate the temporal lobe auditory information with the occipital lobe at the back of the brain visual processing. It's got to integrate accurately and fast. Yeah. So with like a 6-year-old I was working with the other day, so smart. This child is amazing. She can recite the 23rd Psalm from beginning to end. And she goes to a little Christian school, but that's a lot to hold in memory.
Yeah.
And her thinking is very mature for her age. And she's starting to struggle. She's 5.5.
Okay.
She's struggling with letters and sounds, and blending is a hard thing to do. You know, the dyslexic has trouble busting words apart and blending it back together.
Mm-hmm.
And she's having that difficulty at 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a red flag. And so we don't diagnose it as dyslexia at Shelton. Even if we see some clear signs that it still could be developmental. We just call it at risk for a learning difference and start to work on it. So
you're still treating it. You're giving her structured literacy of one of the programs.
Yeah. We're getting help for her. At Shelton, the early childhood Montessori class is 3 to 6-year-olds or 3 to 5-year-olds. So another beauty of Montessori is those younger children get exposed to things that are sometimes over here being presented to an older student. Students with learning differences don't have the same difficulty in every area, and it shows in a Montessori classroom. For example, the child who is avoiding the language area of the room and not wanting to make any choices over there, and when you say, "Come, I want to give you a lesson here," that no, thank you, I'd rather not. But yes, we are. That same child may be accelerated learner in math. Many dyslexics are very strong in mathematics. They have unusually strong visual spatial skills, which is one of the 2 things that Nancy Krasa in her book, Number Sense and Nonsense, summarizes research about what helps people learn math, what 2 things are really critical. The research has shown visual spatial ability and language, the language of math. Are you bringing meaning to what, plus, add, subtract, multiply, divide, all this terminology? So another thing that they may be strong in is the sciences and the cultural subjects. They love maps. They've got this great visual spatial ability.
And she pushed back against excuses.
We can't afford to do it. We don't have enough staff. You can afford it. And one of the things my husband said to me when we first met, he was the superintendent of a school in Cincinnati, and he had put the SHED program into his school. This was about 1968. And I said, "So how are you doing this? I talk to superintendents all over the country. We'd love to help those little children, but we just don't have the money." He said, "Joyce, you always have the money. You have to decide where you're putting it."
Her clarity cut through decades of resistance. She knew untreated learning differences didn't stay academic.
I think the biggest thing that is a cause for my dedication to this whole field is that what starts out as a learning difference becomes a mental health problem. So the depression and anxiety research on people with learning differences shows that there's a much higher percentage of drug and alcohol use by middle school and risk of suicide. And I have seen that over the years. The student that didn't get any help and really didn't get any understanding, that is hopeless. And I think the only people that commit suicide are hopeless. They see no light at the end of the tunnel, and they think they're worthless, and they make a horrible decision. So that makes me very serious about this subject.
the future of the revolution. Even after 50 plus years, Joyce doesn't talk about legacy. She talks about the future: teacher preparation, policy reform, community advocacy, and the responsibility each of us carries.
These are some of the most intelligent and creative human beings in our world. And if they can be helped, it just gives them better mental health and the confidence to do what they would really like to do, but think they can't.
Joyce reminds us that revolutions aren't always new. Sometimes they're torches passed from one generation to the next, from Orton to Orton Society, to IDA, to IMSLEC and Alta, to Shelton School, to Phillips Fundamental Learning Center, and now to you listening.
At Phillips Fundamental Learning Center in Wichita, Kansas, we believe every child deserves the power to read, especially those with dyslexia or learning differences. We start with a personalized literacy assessment so parents and students can finally understand how a child learns and what support will truly help. As a nonprofit, PFLC offers more than hope. We offer real solutions: intensive research-based instruction, training for parents and educators, innovative tools like the Sound Case, Fundamental Case, and Grammar Case, designed to strengthen reading, writing, and spelling at home and in classrooms. All of this happens in our state-of-the-art 37,000 square foot facility where students learn, parents heal, and teachers grow. And the impact is real. PFLC has helped hundreds of thousands of children unlock the joy of reading. Families and educators across the country call our programs life-changing. You want to learn more? Visit funlearn.org or call 316-684-7323. Tour our campus, schedule an assessment, or support our mission to change a child's future. Phillips Fundamental Learning Center, where reading begins and hope never ends.
As we close this bonus episode in Season 3, we remember the revolution is not new. We are simply picking up the torch from those who carried it before us. Joyce S. Pickering is one of those torchbearers. And because she kept this knowledge alive, the revolution we're living in now, the one parents and teachers are leading, was even possible. Dr. Pickering, thank you for your life's work, your voice, and your unwavering belief in every child's right to learn to read. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. If Joyce Pickering's life reminds us of anything, it's this: change doesn't happen by chance. It happens when people show up, dig deep, and refuse to accept that struggling readers are anything less than capable of success. So if you're a teacher, a parent, or an advocate, take one step today. Share what you've learned, train a colleague, or speak up for structured literacy. Every action matters, and together, those actions become a revolution in reading. And speaking of the bigger picture, next season we take this conversation even further with Season 4, The State of Literacy, Policy, Equity, and the Future of Reading in Kansas and across America. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening to My Child Can't Read, a Heartland Crisis. If today's episode resonated with you, if you saw yourself, your child, or your classroom in these stories, you're not alone. We believe every child can learn to read, and every parent and teacher deserves the knowledge to help them. I invite you to take action today by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode, rate and review to help others find this series, and tell us about your story and discover how the Phillips Fundamental Learning Center is changing lives through literacy at funlearn.org/podcast. That's funlearn.org/podcast. And share this show with a friend, teacher, or fellow parent who needs to hear it. All resources, source credits, and tools mentioned in this episode can be found in the show notes. Remember, together we can rewrite the story one reader at a time right here in the Heartland.